What's up, everybody? Welcome to today's edition of Everyday Discipline, where we decode, deconstruct, and reverse engineer self-discipline for you. Yes, you, to get whatever it is you want in your life. My name is Brent Kokel, and I am your host. Thank you guys for being on the show with me today. I know a lot of stuff is competing for your attention, especially if you listen to the previous episode. You know that there's a lot of stuff competing for your attention. There is a lot competing for your attention. I get that. And you're giving up some of your bandwidth on me, for which I am very, very grateful. One, because it's nice to know that I'm not just recording these episodes and they're going nowhere. Because I spend a lot of time preparing these episodes, and then obviously I record a lot of them and publish a lot of them. Doing 3 of these a week is definitely not a small task, and that's not like a martyr statement or anything like that. It's just, I appreciate you being here because I put the effort into having something for you that is designed really to help you gain perspective, and beyond perspective, to take action. Actions that will improve your life. We have this conversation so often. Everybody says they want to change and they want to transform, but most of them don't. They don't. They just sit there. They don't have any real deal when it comes to making the transformation. They get stuck, then they start talking shit to themselves about themselves, and they just don't make it. But I don't want that to be you, and I'm glad that you're listening to this episode. Again, grateful for that. And this episode is actually about change, and one of the reasons why people fail to take change in their life, or fail to make change and transformation in their life. I'm going to share with you guys a story that is going to lead up to a lesson, and then a practical application of how that works. So one of the things that you know about me, if you listen to this episode a lot, or you watch my YouTube videos, or you know me in the real world. Whoa, wait a second. People know me in the real world? Yes, they do. You know for certain that one of the things that my identity is tied to is fitness. Ever since I was 15 years old, my sister said that girls wouldn't like me if I had skinny arms. I've been into fitness, and I work out 6 days a week. 6 days a week, pretty hard. And then on the 7th day, I will usually just like take a walk, like active recovery. And what I've got to get better at, by the way, is stretching. I'm good at being consistent and doing the hard things, but I'm not good at being consistent in doing the seemingly easy things, which I guess makes them hard. But that's a story for another day. So we were going up to Tahoe last week, and I needed to work out on Sunday before we left. And the gym's not open on Sunday. I go to a CrossFit gym. It's only open 6 days a week. But I needed a hard workout for that Sunday. I'd missed one earlier in the week because I didn't sleep well. And so like I'm pretty tied to 6 hard workouts a week. So I decided that I'm going to do one in my front yard and my street, because we live in this neighborhood where every house is like on a half-acre lot, pretty big houses, and doing it in the street and on the driveway was going to give me enough room, because the workout that I cooked up was just going to have a kettlebell involved, because that's all I've really got at my house for working out. I've got a pull-up bar and I've got a weighted vest, but I wanted to use the kettlebell in this one. I've got a 53-pound kettlebell. And so the workout was as follows. I would run 500 meters. Then I would come back and do 50 kettlebell swings, the Russian kind, or the American kind, not the Russian kind, meaning that you get it vertical, like over your head. I'd do 50 of those. Then I'd do 50 goblet squats, which is holding the kettlebell and doing a squat. And I'd do 50 of those. Then I'd go back out and run another 400 meters, 40 kettlebell swings, 40 squats, 300 meters, 30 kettlebell swings, 30 squats, 200 meters, 20 kettlebell swings, 20 squats, 100 meters, 10 kettlebell swings, 10 kettlebell squats. Seems like a simple workout, right? But one thing that you know about any sort of CrossFit style workout is that the easier it sounds, the harder it is. Like the ones that are super short, and this one wasn't super short, but the ones that are super short are the ones that kick your ass the most, where you're laying on the ground and you feel like you're one heartbeat away from death and you can hardly breathe. And that's kind of like the beauty of it, right? They say that it's going to sound easy, but it's really, really, really hard. So wherever this one sounded like it, it felt really hard to me that day. And it felt hard because I really wasn't into it. I was by myself, and I just didn't have it in me that day. And I decided that I wasn't going to have a time cap, because typically in that type of a workout, you would have a time cap that says you have this much time to finish all of that work. And then if you don't finish, then you don't get to finish the workout. You've got to take a X on your score. And so I didn't set a timeline on this. I just set a timer on my phone that was running up versus running down. So I was still going to finish it in some amount of time. I was going to know how long it took me, but it wasn't a decreasing amount of time. Now, of course, you know what happens. This thing takes me forever. It takes me like 20 something minutes. I forget exactly how long it took me to take it, but it was definitely one where I was resting a lot more than I should have been. There was a lot more time with my hands on my knees than it should have been because I'm just sitting there trying to catch my breath. Now, had there been a bunch of people around, I would have gone a lot faster. But also, had there been a decreasing amount of time that I had to finish this workout, I would have gone faster as well. And that's the lesson inside of today's episode, guys, is the timeline drives the urgency. Timeline does drive the urgency. It is a fundamental reason why so many people fail at achieving what they want to achieve. They set a timeline that is either way too long, which I'll talk about more in a second. They set a timeline that's way too short, meaning their realistic or their expectations are completely unrealistic. Or the third problem, which is what I had in this case, which is that you don't set a timeline at all. But timelines really do drive urgency. Now let's take a look at setting long timelines because I find that to be the biggest problem when it comes to setting a timeline. People will set timelines too long, particularly in business, right? And body will set them way too short. I'm gonna lose 20 pounds in a month. It's like way too short. You might be able to do it like on some crash course diet and doing all sorts of workouts, but you're gonna gain more than that back in short order. So we set too short of timelines in body, but we set too long of timelines in business. Most of the time, people wanna set annual goals. Now, when I was a hired gun and I was working for somebody else, we would set annual goals. And those annual goals, here's what happened. Tell me if this story sounds familiar in whatever business you're in, whatever size company you run, tell me if this story sounds familiar. So we'd get together in December and we would set these goals. These goals would be about what the company was going to do over the next 12 months. In theory, by December 31st of the following year, all of these things would be accomplished. We would be happy. The world would be an amazing place. Our company would be profitable as fuck, and we would all get ourselves bonuses. That's really what we thought. So you'd leave this meeting in December of the previous year, all fired up, going like, okay, we are gonna go get it. We're gonna do all these things. It's gonna be amazing. Like, let's go. I'm clear on what I have to do. You're clear on what you have to do. Let's go. We are going to make this thing happen. Then you get back to your office and the real world sets in. You start getting calls, you start getting emails, you start getting back into your normal patterns and behaviors where you're not really a business owner, you're a firefighter. Because you're putting out fires. Your company, your staff brings you all sorts of fires, your clients bring you all sorts of fires. There are fires burning everywhere and your job really is to go put them out. It's not to be a business owner or, in this case, somebody that was directing a business unit, right? Because I didn't own the whole business. I just had 106 people that reported to me. But you're all fired up. Q1 goes by and nobody really does anything about this massive objective that you set in January. You think, okay, no big deal, no big deal. You get back together on a quarterly basis just to check your progress. Nobody's made any progress and you say, man, we should really do something about that. Yep, we should. Q2's here. We should do something about that. Everybody's fired up again. But then you go back, the real world hits and now shit, you haven't done anything about it. Now you're meeting Q3 going like, hey man, we really need to start paying attention to this. And so you kind of sort of do. Because now what you thought was going to take you a year, you've only got 6 months to accomplish. It's not like the goal gets adjusted because nobody did anything about it. You keep the same exact goal. Q3 comes and goes and you kind of make a little bit of progress, but you're still really half-assing it until you get to Q4. When you get to Q4, everybody's urgency picks up because now they're going like, holy shit, we have not done nearly enough work about this. Now we've only got 3 months to accomplish something that we thought was going to take 12. Let's get all the resources, all the teams, all the focus on this thing. And you still don't hit it because it was going to take 12 months. It was never going to take 3 months. The timeline was too long and you missed your target. Tell me if that sounds familiar. I'll bet you it sounds familiar. I bet you there's some people going like, no, that ain't me, but you guys are full of shit because it's true. It happens to everybody. And it's not because you suck, it's just because the nature of the way that we've been taught, trained, and educated by every business book, and I'm sure every MBA program across the country, doesn't ever teach you the important shit. They want to teach you college level calculus. But the important thing about how to get things happening and ultimately moving, this is a really valuable lesson in it. Timelines do drive urgency. But they can drive it in different ways. Because the example I just gave you was that you had this timeline that was simply too long. too long. Now, of course, there's a flip side to this because sometimes you set your targets and timelines that are way too short. Talked about it in body. People do the same thing in business. They think they're going to grow 300% inside of a year when they're already doing like 50 million. It's a really hard thing to do. It's possible, and it could be probable if you would plan and if you'd break your things down into small enough tasks and then figure out how to course correct them. Because that's the big deal. In the example that I gave you of an annual timeline that nobody hit because nobody did anything about it, it's because the assessment periods for your progress were too far apart. And because you hadn't broken it down in actionable steps. Because in reality, these long-term goals that we set, if you set a goal that's longer than even a month, it's not really actionable. Now, I'm not a proponent of setting monthly goals. I'm a proponent of setting annual goals that are broken down into quarterly missions that you have into monthly objectives and weekly targets. That's really my philosophy of this whole thing. And then we go into daily actions, but that's like a whole complicated deal. So we're not going to go into all that today. But the deal with it is that you have to create action items around the thing that you want to achieve. But most people look at the goal and they say, we're really going to get to it. We're really going to get to it because the timeline is too long. When we break down the target, that makes it actionable. Understanding the actions that need to take tell you the timeline that the goal really should be hit on. We can manufacture that in some ways where typically we'll say like, all right, we got our annual goal, but we're going to break that down into quarterly. Then we're going to break that down into monthly. Then we're going to break that down into weekly. Then we're going to break that down into daily because check this out. If you win every single day, you stack up those wins and you win the whole game. Voila. See, it's not hard. Well, it is hard. It's not complex, but it is difficult because it requires consistency. It requires focus. It requires self-discipline, which is what this whole show is about, guys. It's just a vehicle to get you wherever you want to go. But understanding the tactics behind it and how you need to execute is what this episode of this entire show is about. So the timeline drives the urgency. So what I want you to do, guys, is I want you to go and I want you to look at your objectives, the goals that you set for yourself. Might be a business thing, might be a body thing, maybe a relationship thing, maybe a spiritual thing, whatever the goal it is that you set for yourself. By the way, guys, this is the spot where we do our call to action. Meaning that you've got to do something about this. What's the simplest action you could take in the next 24 to 48 hours that will improve your life measurably in some way? That's the fee for this show. If you got something out of it, this is what I want you to do. I want you to improve your own life as a result of it. So look at the spot in your life, whatever your targets are, whatever your goals are, and ask yourself, where have I set a timeline that is way too long or way too short? And how could I better assess the action items necessary that will propel me forward to achieve what I'm actually setting out to achieve here? See, the process, again, it is something that is not complex. It's simple, but it's not easy simply because of the consistency that's required to get it. We'll deal with consistency in future episodes. We've dealt with consistency in past episodes. With this episode, this is about creating the structure of how exactly you're going to get what you want to get and by when. So you guys know what you need to go do. Hey, if you have not yet, before you leave, do me a favor and give this episode a rating. Give this episode, this podcast, a rating on whatever platform you are listening to it on or whatever platform you are watching it on. That certainly helps out with the algorithm, helps get the message to more people, which is exactly what I am aiming to do with this message. I want to help as many people as possible, and this is a format that I've chosen to do it in. So please do give me a rating while you're on this podcast, and I would be very, very much appreciative of that. I'm grateful for you anyway, just being here on the show. All right, guys, as always, I'm going to do my job and come back next time. I want you to do your job and you come back too.